You've never seen an art exhibit like this one before. The story behind it will uplift you. And here to talk about the Art of Peace program is Pati Navalta, Executive Director of the Robby Poblete Foundation. Pati, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so first, let's talk about the foundation and why you started this.
Sure. Well, the foundation was created in February 2017. My son Robby was killed by gun violence in Vallejo, California in 2014. And it took a while for me to figure out what I wanted to do with that pain. And I wanted to turn it into something meaningful. So I came up with the Robby Poblete Foundation. Our mission first is to reduce gun violence by having gun buybacks. And that to me didn't seem like a complete mission. What we do after that is we take the decommissioned firearms and distribute the metal to artists throughout the Bay Area to make art out of them. And we raise awareness about the impacts of gun violence through that art.
Well, it's amazing what you're doing, especially in the face of such tragedy. I'm so sorry about your son, but you're turning it into a positive. And you mentioned this art program that you have, and of course this Art of Peace program and art exhibit. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I was in awe of the submissions that we got. When I first started this, it was just an idea, and I thought, well, maybe we'll get a few submissions from around Vallejo, which is where it was centered. We actually got submissions from around the world, and what I didn't expect were the stories that came with each submission. There was an Iranian immigrant that moved to the Bay Area who fled the country with his friends because of the political turmoil and because of the violence, only to have his friends killed by gun violence here in America. And he wanted to do something in honor of those friends, and he was one of the artists who was selected. We had another woman whose fiance had just completed building their home for them to live in after they got married, and he was killed by gun violence right after he completed that. And so she created that piece of art with the guns very much in grief, and it was a way for her to channel that pain. So I did not expect the stories that came with it, but I think we opened up a way for people to turn their own pain into purpose.
And hearing those stories and knowing that other families share the same grief you're sharing, what did that do for you personally?
Well, it's sad. You know, it's sad to know that the pain that because it is an unbearable pain that you feel, especially when it's your child. And I think that I was happy, you know, at the very least, to be able to give this opportunity for people to turn that pain into something, which is what I was doing through the foundation.
And one of the things that you mentioned was the gun buyback program. What has the response been like with that?
Oh gosh, so in February of 2019 will just be our 2-year mark, and we've already gotten more than 600 firearms out of circulation. And I know a lot of people say, well, what's the efficacy of a gun buyback? For me, you know, I was looking into a lot of gun-related crimes. A lot of the firearms that were used were stolen from homes. So if we can just get one person to surrender a firearm that they no longer want, we eliminate the chances of that firearm being stolen and used for a crime.
On top of this foundation, you're also a journalist as well, and an author. You recently wrote a book, A Better Place, a memoir of peace in the face of tragedy.
Yes, that book was released recently in May, and that book was what I turned to. Before I started the foundation, I had a really bad case of PTSD. I couldn't return to the city that was my home for 30 years because of what happened, and I started to write. And that book is very much a journey of what happens after the headline runs that someone murder number so-and-so occurred in the city of Vallejo. What happens to that family? What happens to the community? And there's larger impacts and a ripple effect that I think people don't really think about, you know, when they read or hear about a homicide. And even though it's a tragic story, I think readers come away with a sense of hope.
Right, because usually when we tell the stories, it's just a person's name. We don't know the story behind it.
Right.
And the family that person leaves behind. How was the book and also the art and the foundation, how has that helped you with your healing process?
Oh, I think they're all interconnected. Actually, the foundation was created because I wrote the book. I was coming toward the end of the book, and I was writing that I still have not returned to the city where my son was born and where he was killed. But maybe if I create a sense of community again for myself and I create something positive, I can then return to the city. And it was through writing that I created the foundation. And all of it, you know, everyone has a way to channel their pain. You don't have to lose a child or someone to gun violence. All of us, no matter who we are, go through some kind of pain in this life. And so finding our way to channel that pain into something that's purposeful and meaningful is what I try to do. For me, it's writing, and I've opened up the portal for others to use their art.
Well, you are definitely doing great things. Thank you so much for coming on the
you.
show and sharing your story as well. And for more information on the Art of Peace program, just visit RobbyPobleteFoundation.org. You can also pick up Pati's book, A Better Place, a memoir of peace in the face of tragedy, too. Up next, prepare to be inspired by this organization that empowers young girls to lead. Bay Area Focus will be right back.